Guys, welcome. Thank you for listening to my last video. Super nervous about it. Sure, I'm still gonna get some hater comments, but I'm really grateful for everybody that reached out and was like, yeah, I lived like that too, or that has never really heard of Mormonism or don't know Mormons and they're like, that shit is crazy. So I'm gonna just keep diving into it topic by topic. Today I'm gonna talk about something kind of crazy that super harmful, very harmful to Mormon people. Maybe not all Mormon people, but I think if you're really self-aware, just anybody, I guess. Who am I to say it doesn't affect everybody? We're going to talk about sex. Very much hurt my own self-esteem and confidence, which is the opposite of what being chaste and being virtuous is supposed to do in the church. So I'm going to get into it. I'm not going to just talk about just doing it and getting freaky. There's a lot that comes before that in terms of chastity, modesty, all that good shit that the church teaches you and indoctrinates you with to... I think they have good intentions of keeping you safe, keeping you from having STDs, keeping you from getting your heart broken. Like, I get it. But I think that they should be strong suggestions, not mandatory. There's not a lot of consent taught in the church, not a lot taught about sex in general, which is bad because people are going to do it anyways, and they're not going to be safe about it. They're not going to know how to process it healthily. I say they as in me too, that I've been there. So I'm relearning a lot about everything in general. Obviously, that's kind of what my aim of these videos is for, to just process through my trauma, share with people that probably are going through the same shit or have felt that, or are just fascinated by it and are like, the fuck, like, you lived like this? And I'm trying to heal from it, and I think talking about it helps. Chef's kiss. Yeah, so first, let's talk about modesty. What is modesty? Modesty is not only your clothing, but it's your whole demeanor, it's your thoughts, it's how you interact with people, it's how you dress, it's how you think. So as somebody who's very self-aware, very perfectionist, very anxious, I'm constantly in my thoughts, constantly in this battle with a million voices in my head. So when you're in this church and in this religion that breeds be pure, be perfect, be chaste, always be repenting, every thought is wrong. You think about hooking up with a guy and you're like, do I have to tell somebody? I always thought that was so foreign to me that, like, if you do something with a guy, you have to go in and tell your bishop, who's like a random white guy that's like 60 years old. And you have to tell them specifically everything you did. And I've never done that because no way in hell was I ever going to do that. But I had a couple friends that, like, had gone in, mainly guys. Mormon guys feel so much guilt about it. And they have to tell them, like, where did you touch her? Where did she touch you? Were you guys petting? Were you necking? Like, before. Why am I gonna tell some old dude who doesn't know me my sexual sins so that God can forgive me? Okay, so back to modesty. Your clothes. Let's just read a little bit about it. I just did some research on the internet straight from the church website to read through some of, like, the manuals and kids' books and things that you are taught, the main doctrine about what modesty in sex is. So they say, your body is sacred, respect it, and do not defile it in any way. Through your dress and appearance, you can show that you know how precious your body is. You can show that you are a disciple of Jesus Christ and that you love him. I get it, and I always followed that, and that's how... Okay, I didn't always follow that, because technically I was very immodest, but I felt this guilt of wearing things that I wasn't supposed to be wearing showed that I didn't love God. I didn't love Jesus enough. Like, it's your choice, it's your body, it's your life. And there's a large percentage of the world that's religious, but a percentage also that's Mormon that believes your clothes are a reflection of just like how worthy you are and how much you love God. And so you feel like you're wearing short shorts, like in your head you might as well be like saying fuck God, and everybody can see it. So that's what one of the things they also say in the doctrine is that like people can tell by your clothes like what type of a person you are. Continuing, prophets of God have continually counseled his children to dress modestly. When you are well-groomed and modestly dressed, you invite the companionship of the Spirit, and you can be a good influence on others. Your dress and grooming influence the way you act and others act. So, I was always told and taught as a young girl in the girls' classes you have in church every Sunday that you should primarily dress modestly because boys cannot control their thoughts. It was kind of an idea of like, boys will be boys. Do not leave yourself uncovered, or else then they're going to have bad thoughts, and then they're going to get into pornography, and they're going to create sin. So you need to be the example because you're a daughter of God, so you need to be better than that. And you know you're holy, so show it. Okay. Continuing. Never lower your standards of dress. Do not use a special occasion as an excuse to be immodest. When you dress immodestly, you send a message that is contrary to your identity as a son or daughter of God. You also send the message that you're using your body to get attention and approval. What's wrong with that? It's never encouraged to just like yourself. Like, the only way that you like yourself in the church is like because you like your identity as a son or daughter of God and that you're loved by God. But what if I love myself? What if I love how my body looks? What if I love my just natural self and I'm not afraid of what other people think and I'm embracing natural parts of me? This is natural. Sexuality is natural. Immodest clothing is anything that is tight, sheer, or revealing in any other manner. Young women should avoid short shorts and short skirts, shirts that do not cover the stomach, and clothing that does not cover the shoulders or is low cut in the front or the back. Technically, this is bad. This is pretty modest. I'm wearing a fucking turtleneck. Young men should also maintain modesty in their appearance. This is all they say about young men. But for girls, like, boys can wear tank tops, they can wear whatever, but it's just like, girls, like, don't you dare show your shoulders. Don't do it. Young men and young women should be neat and clean and avoid being extreme or inappropriately casual. What? Inappropriately casual in clothing, hairstyle, and behavior. They should choose appropriately modest apparel when participating in sports. Yeah, even when you're in sports, like, the fashions of the world will change, but the Lord's standards will not change. Even though a lot of things in the church continually every year change. That's where a lot of my testimony was shaken when they said, like, God is the same yesterday, today, forever. Yet so many things are always changing that I'm like, do I trust these prophets? Do I trust this? Because at one point polygamy was chill, racism was chill. Like, do not disfigure yourself with tattoos or body piercings. Young women, if you desire to have your ears pierced, wear only one pair of earrings. So it's very strict. Modesty was something that I always felt like I had to sneak around and do. I guess immodesty, wearing what I wanted to wear. And like, who cares if you want attention? Who cares if you like the way your body looks? Like, I feel great when I see men or women that are confident in their body and they're wearing something that makes them feel good. And I know their self-esteem is probably higher. You know, it's like ironic they tell you like your self-esteem is probably low if you're like dressing immodestly because like you're trying to get attention from the world. But like in my world, like I feel good when I wear those type of things. Not that I'm not insecure sometimes, but it's ironic to me that shows higher self-esteem. Okay, so let's actually talk about sex. Sex, I wrote down the severity of breaking the law of chastity. they tell you that sex is one of the worst sins you could ever commit. It's closest to murder. Sex is a very hush-hush thing in the church, and so it's weird to me, like, the only time that it's ever talked about is, like, when a girl has a bridal shower or a bachelorette party and she's Mormon, and then, like, randomly all the, like, adult women get super kinky and, like, start saying things that, like, you'll be so excited for this and da-da-da, but it's only ever appropriate at those events. Whereas I think that it should be more normalized, and I think that the world in general is starting to normalize it a lot more, in terms of health and pleasure and happiness, not so much like pornography or like lust, but like in the woman finding pleasure and a higher self-esteem and in finding confidence in herself and in her partner. So that's really the only time sex is talked about in the Mormon church in a non-terrible way. But I feel bad for Mormon people that are going into sex for the first time on their wedding night. Like, I hope somebody talked to them. I don't know if the boys are talked to. I hope the women are talked to and are prepared. But, like, I've had friends that said they didn't enjoy sex for, like, the first year. A year. Or that they were so terrified and that the first night was terrible. Or they're not sexually compatible really with their partner and they got there and then it just didn't work out and then they ended up just splitting up. It's really important to have sex as a integral part of your life that is talked about and normalized, so that can be a healthy thing in your life. This is damaging because sexuality is a normal thing. It's always been seen as like a satanic thing to me in the church, that like, I don't believe in Satan anymore because I don't want that power over me of guilt and of fear, but it's really instilled in you that like your thoughts, your music you listen to, the way you talk, the way you interact with boys, like that's all going to influence you to choose bad, unholy choices that are not safe and that are dangerous and evil. Sexuality is normal, and that's like one of the best parts of life. And I don't think it has to be between man. First of all, it doesn't have to be between man and woman. Fuck that. I think you can love whoever you want to love. I think there are bigger problems than two girls hooking up. I think that it's just crazy to me that that is something that is so normal and is one of the greatest joys of life. But you're so repressed because you're trying to be so perfect and so worthy until you find the right person and then you can finally have sex. But I know so many Mormon people that are divorced now. And I think a lot of times people rush into things because they just are so fucking horny and they just want to have sex. And they just like want to get there and they just want to find a wife because that's what they need to do. When in reality, like, you could be figuring it out with a lot of people. Obviously, yes, be safe, like, be protected. There are STDs, like, you could still get fucking pregnant. So, like, yeah, cover yourself, like, watch yourself, like, but it's your choice. And it's always been like, this is God's body, not your body. This is a blessing, this is sacred, this is holy. And I think my body's amazing. I think it's amazing how it heals itself. I dealt with an eating disorder for the longest time. I fucking starved myself. I abused my body so much, yet it still encompassed me and loved me and tried to constantly heal myself when I was breaking it down. But like, I love my body. I love exercising. I love eating now sometimes. I love feeling those different sensations. And that's just like one of the best parts of life is having a body. And, we shouldn't feel guilty about it. Like, I was never taught to look at my body like naked or to see what's down there. I didn't even know what masturbation was until I was like 21, and one of my like guy friends was just like trying to talk to me because I had just come off a mission. I was so sexually confused in terms of how do you be a sexual person and keep the spirit with you, because I was just on this high of holiness, which wasn't bad. Like, I was really kind. I was feeling really, I don't know, love for other people, but I didn't have love for myself, and I feared God. And I just had no idea how. I was so sexually immature. I was like, how am I ever gonna date people and do this if, like, how do you fuck and then afterwards get down on your knees with your partner and pray? Like, I just don't get it. And I'm sure the two can coincide. I'm sure that religious people could tell me otherwise. But I didn't know anything about my body, and I was shocked when, I don't know why, I always knew about, like, male masturbation, but I never knew about female masturbation, and it took me a while to just get comfortable to, first of all, look at my body, look at what's down there, learn about its anatomy, learn about how sex works, learn about what's possible and potential for me to feel, and it's amazing. I'm just saying this a lot just on the internet, like, like, you can do amazing things. Like, you don't even have to have a guy or a partner. Like, you are, like, allowed to feel these amazing things. Like, an orgasm is the best thing and one of the best things in the world. And the church will lead you to believe that that's just a lustful feeling. And so what if it is? Life's hard enough. Like, don't you want to just have something good in your life? At least one of those things that makes you happy. So that was huge when I started to know my body. My self-esteem through the roof, because I'm like, oh, I don't need anybody, because if I can make myself feel like this and I know what I like, I know how I'm comfortable, then you don't need anybody, which is ironic because then now my self-esteem's way higher. My relationship with my body is way healthier. I'm treating my body way better. But a lot of men, especially more so in the church, are so repressed, and that's why there's such a high porn addiction for guys in the church. Like, there's really high stats of, like, especially, like, young dudes, because they're not even supposed to masturbate. They're not supposed to do anything, just in general. It's very repressed. What's crazy, so even in the law of chastity, which is something that you agree to do, I think when you're baptized, when you're 8, I don't know, but then also when you go through the temple, scary rituals in the Mormon temple, say that you're going to be chaste until marriage, and then once you're married, you're not going to have other relationships. When I was on my mission, we would be teaching couples sometimes, and in order to get baptized, like, you have to be living the law of chastity, so we would have to tell them, like, you can't be living together, so let's pray about when you're going to move out, or let's pray about when you're going to get married. Like, who are we to say that? Like, I remember, like, planning with my companion, the other girl you're with, and we're, like, writing down and praying and feeling inspired about, like, what was next for these people, and she's like, let's pray about their wedding date. And I'm like, that's not our responsibility, or our, like, we're not in control of that at all. So let's step back a sec. So I'm just looking through some of the commandments in, like, the missionary Preach My Gospel thing that I taught people from, and it's just like, couples living together, like, this is what you need to tell them to do. God. So just down into, this is mainly about the mindset of sex, not even so much about sex in specifically. This is a quote from one of the prophets we had, Spencer W. Kimball. He says, "Immortality does not begin in adultery or perversion. It begins with little indiscretions like sex thoughts, sex discussions, passionate kissing, petting, and such, growing with every exercise. The small indiscretion seems powerless compared to the sturdy body, the strong mind, the sweet spirit of youth who give way to the first temptation." Always temptation. "But soon the strong has become weak, the master the slave, spiritual growth curtailed. But if the first unrighteous act is never given root, the tree will grow to beautifully maturity, and the youthful life will grow towards God our Father." Wow, this is pretty heavy. "What, may I ask you, is like unto adultery if it is not petting? Did not the Lord recognize that this heinous sin is but the devil's softening process for the final acts of adultery of fornication? Can a person in the light of the Lord's scriptures pursue the path of petting with clear conscience? Can anyone convince himself that this is not a deep sin? For I, the Lord, cannot look upon sin with the least degree of allowance. When the scriptures are so plain, how can anyone justify immoralities and call them love? Is black white? Is evil good? Is purity filthiness? Oh, that was heavy. There's just a heavy theme and feeling that the prophets and the scriptures say about sex, of it being the worst. Wouldn't that cause you, it caused me to feel so bad about myself, when in reality the rest of the world is making sex so much more of a normal and healthy thing. Sex is really good for relationships, and then masturbation, I think, is really good for your self-esteem. I think both are good for your self-esteem. It makes you communicate. It helps you express love or your feelings. And I don't think it necessarily has to be love. It's your own decision. And I think we spend too much of time in this life judging other people's decisions, and when we should really just worry about ourselves. Here's another thing President Kimball said. He's gnarly. Another of the many things that lead to unchastity is immodesty. Today, many young women and young men are smug in their knowledge of the facts of life. They think they know all the answers. They talk about sex as freely as they talk about cars and shows and clothes, and a spirit of immodesty has developed until nothing seems to be sacred. One contributing factor to immodesty and breakdown of moral values is the modern dress. I am sure that the immodest clothes that are worn by some of our young women and their mothers, calling out the moms, contribute directly and indirectly to the immorality of this age. It's all the girl's fault, isn't it, for just showing her body? She's asking for it, right? Even fathers sometimes encourage it. Why? Because they're not sexualizing their daughters? I wonder if our young sisters realize the temptation they are flaunting before young men when they leave their bodies partly uncovered. Oh my gosh. It's not your fault. What you wear is for you. What you wear, how you use your body, fuck off. Fuck off. People, I understand the general concern, but it should be taught in a way of, hey, you are sacred, you are loved. Use your body in a way that makes you feel so, or that makes you feel the happiest. Learn your lessons you need to, but know that God always loves you and that he will always be there for you. Use protection. Teach consent. These things are not taught. Just like abortion's going to keep happening, even if it's banned, and it's just going to happen not in a safe way. And same with sex. I never had a talk with my parents. Anytime that we had a semi kind of talk about it, they kind of laughed about it and didn't really know what to say. And I think a lot of parents don't know how to healthily talk about sex because they just don't want their kids to be having it at all. But it's gonna happen, and it's natural, and that's your choice. And I wish I was taught more, so now I'm just teaching myself more. Also, consent is very much not taught at all. I'm sure there's a lot of marital rape that happens once people are married in the church. So much of the church's view about sex is it's a great thing to share between you and your spouse, but so much of it is about pleasing the man, because your goal is to replenish the earth and have children. But it's not ever ever talked about your own pleasure and feeling good, and it being a good thing for you too. Also, consent is not talked about. I still have some trauma of the first couple times that I let myself be intimate with people that I didn't know that well, which is fine, but I didn't know how to assert my needs. So there were a lot of things that were done to me that were not consensual, not comfortable, very uncomfortable to me. And I just gritted my teeth and went with it because I figured this is what I want, right? Or this is what he wants. This is what should be happening, when you don't ever have to say yes. You can always change your mind. You should always be asked. And that's pretty fucked up that happens to a lot of us. I feel sad when I read these things that I used to believe about myself and about what God thought about me. And now, it sounds kind of narcissistic to say, but I'll get into it later. I have different spiritual beliefs now, and I believe I'm the universe. I believe we all are the universe. And so it comes down to self-love and how you treat yourself. And I'm happy with where I'm at. I'm happy with my choices, and some are not even wrong. They're just different choices, and they lead to different consequences, and I've had to learn a lot, and I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for my sexual partners. I'm grateful for my sexual journey. I'm grateful for my body and all that it does for me. I lost my virginity in my twin bed. It's fine. It doesn't need to be this built up thing in our head as so good or so bad. It just comes down to every little thing that they teach you is wrong. So this is in the church manual about law of chastity. It says, "We've been taught that the law of chastity encompasses more than sexual intercourse. The first presidency warned young people of other sexual sins. Before marriage, do not do anything to arouse the powerful emotions that must be expressed only in marriage. Do not participate in passionate kissing, lie on top of another person, or touch the private, sacred parts of another person's body, with or without clothing. Do not allow anyone to do that with you. Do not arouse these emotions in your own body." So if that's true, I'm going to hell. But I'm so proud of myself. And anybody that's broken out of this mindset. Sex is just one of the natural parts of life. And I'm grateful to be learning about myself and my body and the things I can feel and the ways I can express myself, whether that's through sex or through everything, through your clothing, through your thoughts. You're just taught to be so guarded and modest and humble. And there's nothing wrong with being humble, but you silence yourself. And I feel like I'm finally becoming my authentic, true self by stopping that. It's a beautiful thing. So cheers to sex, and cheers to unlearning all the harmful teachings that the church has taught us about it.